Welcome to Powered by Authenticity. I am so excited about tonight's episode where I'm just thrilled to share what makes Western New York so special. Tonight we're highlighting an organization and its amazing team that planted roots here and chose to grow with the community, lifting it up even as their impact expands across the globe. Rich Products is one of those stories. From their start right here in Buffalo to their impact that now stretches worldwide, they've never lost sight of what it means to support families, strengthen neighborhoods, and invest in the place they call home. And I couldn't be happier to welcome two of the leaders who embody that spirit every day, Michelle Philbin and Kevin Aman. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Emily.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
How you guys doing tonight?
Very well.
All right.
Some renewed energy after a full day, but happy to be in this conversation. I've been looking forward to it.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. We've got a beautiful day outside as well. It's shockingly warm, which is nice. But how would you like to share a little bit about yourselves? Michelle, you want to get us kicked off?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So I'm born and bred in Western New York. I grew up in the North Towns, and I left for a brief stint and did my undergraduate degree at Ohio State University. But I was quickly drawn back upon graduation to the area, and since then have really built my life here. So I've been able to work at a bunch of different companies in the area, get to learn those different companies, get to meet a lot of awesome people. I completed my MBA at UB, so again, just really trying to expand my network, and then ultimately decided to stay here. Got married and started a family. I have 3 young boys now that keep us on our toes, and just hope that I can teach them all about Western New York and how they can stay here and continue to build this great community that I've grown to love through the years.
Amazing. It's amazing. Kevin?
Yeah, I am also originally from Western New York. I live in Rochester, even though I work in Buffalo. And so I'm from Rochester originally, and kind of like Buffalo's north and south towns, it's east and west in Rochester. So I'm from the west side of Rochester, and have always loved upstate New York, and especially the last 3 decades living and working here. I went to school at a few different places. Monroe Community College, SUNY New Paltz for a semester, and then to Fordham University, where I graduated from, and I loved Fordham. And New York, I've worked at some ad agencies and PR firms earlier in my career. Worked for a public defense company for about 12 years prior to Rich's, and I've been with Rich's about 12 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, welcome, you guys. I love how everyone finds their way back to Western New York.
Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing. Well, we like to do a little bit of an icebreaker here at the podcast. It's typically food related because we do like our food here. So I'm curious, what's your favorite pizza place? Michelle?
Sure. So this is a hard one for me. I actually, when I was in high school, I worked at a pizzeria, and that would have been hands down my choice. But since then they sold and they closed. And so I then had to spend a couple years trying to figure out what's my new favorite pizza place. I also live in the South Towns now, not the North Towns. So different pizza varieties out here, but I have finally found what I consider to be the best pizza in Western New York, and that would be Picasso's. I love Picasso's pizza. Mm-hmm. I love their pizza, and I love they do in a pizza form, like garlic bread, and me and my family, that's probably our go-to for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. Kevin, what about yourself?
Michelle, maybe we have to do a swap. I think probably we each bring from our favorite spot, and I think we have a lunch date forming at Rich's. Mine is Pontillo's. Pontillo's is, I think they started in Batavia, and they're almost as old as Rich's. I think they started around the same time in the 40s. And I love their wings as well. And so that's my favorite.
All right. Well, Batavia gal. So grew up with Pontillo's.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Still one of our favorites.
Yeah.
And then, it's funny. We have the whole 90 covered for 90 miles actually between Rochester, Batavia, and Buffalo.
Right.
We do.
Yeah. Yeah, we love Batavia's original, which is Puntillo's. Picasso's is good. And then also here, we also have a place called Ficarella's, which is another little mom and pop started, I think, like in the 1950s. So awesome pizza. I'm all for a Rich's Puntillo's pizza lunch day. So let me know.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe you're included in that. So that'll be a follow-up post podcast.
Okay, I love it. Let me know.
Okay.
I'm excited.
Deal.
All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you. We love to get to know everyone. We say food is one of the greatest connectors we have. And so we love to do the icebreaker around that topic. I would love to hear about your roles at Rich Products.
Yeah, I can get us started again.
Yeah.
So I've been with Rich's for about 9 years, and my first little over 6 years was actually in product marketing. So I worked in one of our product portfolio's toppings, and my job was to come up with new products and manage the portfolio. And about 2.5 years ago now, I transitioned into this role that I'm in now, which is in sustainability. So I sit on our Generations of Good team. That's just our term at Rich's for anything ESG, anything environmental, social governance. And so where I sit focused there, the team as a whole is focused on reducing our impact on the planet, on creating portfolio of better for you products, and fostering that sense of belonging. So hitting that people side of things. My focus is on the planet side. So I'm focused on all things about reducing our impact. And so I'm looking at emissions reduction, waste reduction, packaging innovation, sustainable sourcing, preserving our water resources. So anything that you would think around planet, that's where I spend my days, is how we can really grow and embed our strategy on a global scale in a way that makes sense for our business. So that's where my background on the product side really helps, because I understand our business and what our business needs to be successful and to grow, but also can now come at it from this new perspective of how we can do that while also doing what's right for business, but also what's right for the planet.
That's a very large job.
Yeah, it's fun. It's different every day. I like that. I like to be challenged. I like something new every day. Never gets stale.
Yeah. Well, and the complexities behind it, people, you pick up a product and you don't think about all that goes into making sure that you're, from an organizational perspective, protecting what's best for our planet, right? Like it's what's best. Yeah.
And it's the full value chain. So I always say it's where we live, where we source, it's not just one place, it's the whole value chain. So you have to consider every aspect of that, which is a lot.
That is amazing. That's great. Kevin, how about yourself?
Yeah, my role is in 3 different areas. So I'm anchored in our corporate communications team. And I have support of the Rich family. So Rich's is a private family-owned company, and a lot of my work has to do with the family. There's a number of acting stakeholders that work within the business, and then plenty that don't work at Rich's but are actively interested in Rich's, and especially this work under Generations of Good. I also work with Rich Entertainment Group, and then the area that really intersects with the family and also my work with Michelle is under Generations of Good, and specifically Rich Family Foundation, our corporate giving programs or volunteerism. And so when Michelle mentions the people pillar, that's really a lot of where my work is focused in our shared work. And so one of the great things is, even though Michelle and I are in different teams, this work is really integrated into different functions. Michelle spoke about the product piece, and certainly the philanthropic piece, the knowledge sharing. We're really encouraged, that Bob and Mindy Rich. So Mindy is the chairman of Rich's, and Bob stepped into the role of senior chairman a couple of years ago, and they really give us a lot of good, clear direction, and then step back and say, you guys make something of this and report back. And so we love that autonomy to learn and figure out what's next.
That's awesome. What a great thing to be a part of, to have that much, autonomy and get direction, but be able to help to pivot the organization to grow into what it can be. What a great place to be in.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate for for sure.
Yeah. And they own Salem Stadium. Is that correct? Or somehow own the Bisons? Is that correct?
Yeah, they own the Bisons, and the
Okay.
ownership of the stadium, I think, is slightly different arrangement. I can't say exactly. I don't know if I
Yeah.
have that at my disposal of that ownership, but they've owned the Bisons for more than 3 decades, I believe.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great. And Buffalo loves their sports.
yeah, for
So
sure.
that's great. Well, I'm a huge champion of the Bisons as you mentioned product. So here we happen to love the whipped topping, probably more than we should.
I feel that.
Well, you guys have like really cool jobs. Like that's just such a fun thing to be a part of like every day. So very fun. Very cool. Well, one thing that I do know, and what sparked this conversation is, I attend a lot of events. I'm actually a local business owner as well, and go to a lot of events, especially specifically in the tech field. And I noticed more and more Rich's name being there to sponsor local events and really the community as a whole as output for that. So I think it's really like energizing to see a company like Rich put back into the community. How important has that been within the organization? What's your perspective on that?
Michelle, I'll start here, and then
Yeah.
you jump in. I think it's really, I mentioned Mindy and Bob Rich, and I think prior to that really started with the founder and Dolly, his wife at the time, who had very clear philanthropic focus. And so the family certainly credits her as being a really guiding force in their approach to community. One of the things that really drew me to Riches is the humility that associates, so we call our employees associates, but the associates really are involved and kind of have done it in a very quiet way for a very long time. As a communicator, I'm like, we got to tell more of this stuff, like this, because people are interested. And that certainly has changed over time too, right? Like, I think there was a corporate perspective where you give and you don't really talk about it too much. And that had its place. I think there's a demand now from not just communities, but from our associates that they want to know. They want to know where we're involved, where we're choosing, because they're active. And so where's there a match? Where do they head off in directions that are stimulating to them? And how do we learn from them? So I think the culture at Riches has been developed in a way that it is very entrepreneurial in nature, and that extends to our social impact programs. And so, Emily, you mentioned kind of being out and about in the community. There's a model in social impact that's called kind of a confetti approach that is, it really takes the direction of the individual employees or associates that comprise a business. And there's a beauty in that because you learn a lot about people's different interests. As we start to shape our overall image under generations of good and have people understand the context of the work that we're doing, there's a benefit to very focused work as well. So, Michelle, I know you'll likely speak about our food waste initiatives, and so as a food company, there's a very distinct role of responsibility that we have to do good work and to do work better. I mean, that's just what we're really called to do and what energizes us.
Yeah. And I think the other piece of it that's really cool outside of even some of that like waste work that we do as a part of our everyday job is that entrepreneurship feel and how that comes through on that social piece and how our associates are a part of that. And so, I felt that entrepreneur piece from, when I was in product marketing, right? Like it was like running my own business, it's my job to make these products successful, but I see that run through in our jobs. And I see that run through in this social piece every day at Riches. Associates are a part of how we're showing up in the community, right? And so there's groups of associates at Riches that, come up with ways that we're going to participate in community events. And Riches is constantly, ever since I joined, has ways that during the day they're offering ways that we can be participating. So, through the years, there's been various ways of walks or, donating money in different ways, like doing lately it's been I forget the name, what we've been calling it. When we do the ride for Roswell, we just did it, Kevin. Where in the atrium, they bring bikes and everybody's riding bikes.
Yeah. Spin off. Yeah.
Yeah, spin off. Thank you.
Oh,
And
how
so
fun.
it's really fun. And so what I find is that we're able to engage associates at work, which is really exciting. And then also associates feel empowered through the way that Riches shows up in the community, I think, to raise their hand and offer up new ideas on different ways that Riches could show up in the community, right? And different events that maybe we should be a part of, and get coalitions of like-minded associates to participate in that with them. And so I think that all stems from that entrepreneurship or innovative way that our culture really encourages us to be.
Yeah, I hear it like a sense of pride to be a part of that and to keep coming and giving back every day. Like you take pride in the fact that you can help direct where some of those next steps are going to be out in the community or fundraising and different things like that. That's great. I think the entrepreneurial approach is spectacular, but when that equates to being proud of where you work and the work that's being done, what a great place to walk into on a Monday morning.
Yeah,
I think it's really special.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And I think that, we mentioned culture, a lot of that for a lot of that culture helps to drive success for Rich Products. So how have you been able to see that? Do you get that sense, like that pride and that culture that's now being developed is just helping to drive to the next level of success?
Yeah. Riches is a values-based culture. There's 5 values that are really embedded in the organization. And I was very curious with my first couple of months at Riches, if it was just something on the wall, or, I suspected just in the interview process that it wasn't, but I'm also in the PR field skeptical by nature. I'm like, all right, how does this really play out? And so, better our communities is one of the values. And so that's kind of front and center for how we be the trusted first choice. That's another value. And it all fits together. So Bob has, part of the direction that he's given the organization is how we think about ourselves. And he said, we can't think about our company as a success if those around us in the neighborhoods are struggling. And that is, this is what I was talking about, Emily. It's like very simple guidance, but that doesn't mean it's easy, right? Because there's a lot that's involved in it. And so, I think the culture is certainly a big part of what allows us to do the work. And I think that extends into I'll speak about it certainly from the community work. And Michelle, you might have a very similar experience in the work that you do, but I think because there is so much trust, I think it sets the tone for how we go out in the community. And we really listen because we don't know what's going on. We live in the community, but we have a different point of view. And just because we're anchored there doesn't mean we're seeing all the same things that our neighbors are seeing. And so because we're a learning culture, and this is another part of, one of our values, we're really called to take a step back and figure out where we're part of the problem as well as part of the solution. I think it's just part of the equation.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I think our culture is so strong. And I think what's cool is how well it ties with this generations of good, what we call it, with your environmental, social, how you're showing up in your communities, how you're doing better for the world. And those values that Kevin's talking about haven't changed, right? And they were there long before we had this fancy name, Generations of Good, and long before we were trying to really develop and strengthen the strategy. And I just think that's a really awesome thing to be a part of, that the core culture of the company is so tied to how you can show up in the community, how you can do better for those around you, and how you're setting up the world for generations to come, right? And I just think it's a really great thing to be a part of, and it's definitely something you feel when you walk through those doors.
Yeah, it's fun to see the ripple effect that has as well. You're starting it for there, and it just keeps growing and growing. Starting in Buffalo, but expanding out to a global reach. You're making that impact across the globe. It may start here at home, but what an amazing thing to be a part of. Like, you can see how it just reaches and continues to grow. That's amazing.
Yeah, we, the global nature of it is true, and I do think that it goes down to having a very clear set of guidelines and values to then give the freedom for people to do their best work. I think good attracts good, right? So I think that's really helpful, and it's been fascinating to watch as a global company the stories that come back from Vietnam, from England in food waste and what they're doing there, from South America, and then there's one of the ways that we just kind of stand back is to see what is naturally forming that are of a similar theme, and so one of them is kind of our home bakers program, and so this is something that really is not so much grant based, but I think is just using the economic power and knowledge that we have from our associates to help people that are looking to build a better life for themselves. So I think, Bob and Mindy and the Rich family are very interested in the power of companies to be able to provide the tools that people need to build something. And so the home bakers programs that are popping up in Brazil or in Vietnam start with maybe one or two products that an entrepreneur wants to start a home bakery in their house, and then they end up having a shop on the first floor and move up to the second floor and then open up additional bakeries. And so there's been that model that has repeated itself without any formal program initially that would guide it. But this has kind of happened in different corners. And I think that's usually a good indicator to me of where things are authentic, to be true to the name of your podcast, right? Like if something is true, it keeps showing up in different forms. So that's been a real lesson to me.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Yeah, that is great. I had no idea that existed. How fun. Yeah, that's great. And I do say that, food is one of those great connectors, so that home bakers program is a great example of, coming together maybe with a small business, but connecting people through a food product. What are your perspectives on that food is a great connector? And then, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that? And then, how Rich helps beyond what we've already talked about, bring people together through food.
So I have, since I started at Rich's, and I guess that's kind of shifted, but I've always been like, the greatest part of my job is I eat for a living, right? I work at a food company and that's what I get to do. And what's exciting about that is what you're saying is that food does bring people together. And I've always felt that food is such a social experiment. And so I would say my first 6 years at Rich's, how that looked was exactly what you're talking about. It gave me the opportunity to find new products and understand how we could bring those new products to the market to connect people more with food, right? And so for the first couple of years, we did a lot of what we called road shows, and we literally went out and we were talking to people. We were talking to people across the country. My focus at the time was the US, and we were talking to people to understand that, right? How do they connect with food? What brings them joy in eating? Where are those barriers and challenges? And one thing was the strong link to social connections, but we also learned those gaps. And some of those were around specific food requirements, right? And so if you're somebody who has to eat a certain way, that can be challenging when you're trying to be in a social setting, right? Where you want to go out to dinner with your family, but maybe you're vegan and there's not many offerings on the menu. And so that really restricts how you can show up and how you can have that sense of community. And so what was really cool about my job at the time was I got to figure out, how do we start to bridge that and how do we start to fix that, right? So you take those learnings from the community and then you go and talk to the other side of it, which would be the food operators, and say, okay, well, what's stopping you from having these offerings on your menu? Is it education? Is it the actual ingredients you're purchasing, the products you're purchasing? And so we were able to connect those dots and launch quite a few products through the years that met the needs of people through that inclusivity standpoint, and really open up the doors to connect people through food now in ways that they couldn't previously. And that was really rewarding work for me to see how our new products could provide that opportunity for community through food. So I think that's one way that we do it on the day-to-day business side of things, both even without thinking on the generations of good side.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is so great.
When I think about how food brings people together, we're really a company about celebration, right? A lot of our products are celebratory in nature, and so it's really important to keep front and center. And when you don't have food, you can't really think about anything else, right? So we're really aware of what that looks like relative to hunger, and these are long-standing social issues. And I think one of the advantages of being a long held family company is that you can talk about generations, right? And we know what the leadership will look like and what values they will have for decades to come. That's a big deal in the community work. And so, we have something on our website called Table Magazine, which is a digital magazine, but it tells our generations of good and community stories. And the reason we chose that name is exactly what you're talking about, Emily, which is sitting around a table and the conversations that happen in addition to the sharing of food, right? Michelle, it's the social connections that you're talking about, which are really important. And, I heard this in another circle relative to community work that has stopped me in my tracks when I think about the gravity of what we're doing, right? And is somebody said, if you're not at the table, you might be on the menu, which really, when you think about community work, we're really trying to be mindful of who's not part of this conversation right now, right? Yeah. Because there's a lot of people making decisions that maybe don't have the fullest representation of all the implications. And so Michelle, myself, our colleagues within the Generations of Good initiative really try to be mindful of that, about that impact. And we're imperfect, so that's why it's important to kind of do the work that you're doing, Emily, and just kind of share perspectives, have us all think about things a little bit differently so we can, show up the next day and try to tackle it with the same urgency, but know that we have to pace ourselves as well.
Yep. Yeah. And it's fascinating. These conversations are so fascinating to me because I always leave thinking about things in a little bit different of light. Mm-hmm. It's we always come to the table, but who's not able to actually join us? And there's such a gap. And, it's funny, our Buffalo community is smaller, but there's such a need out there. Mm-hmm. So thinking about how, if there's a need here, what's happening across the world? Like, what aren't we seeing and have exposure to? So it's always interesting to hear, this type of conversation. And I love what you're doing under Generations of Good. That's just, for me, it hits the heart because you can think of the positive impact that's coming back to our community.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Well, we are a global audience. What would you like the whole world to know about Rich products that they may not know about? What's one thing?
Yeah, I guess for me, one thing I always, like a new associate or somebody who doesn't know Rich products, and I'm telling them, like, what I love about Rich's is that family culture and that family feel, right? Rich's is truly a family-owned company, but that's through to its core. And so my favorite thing is that we have the resources of a large organization, of a corporation, but we have that family feel, and how that shows up in communities, how that shows up in business, and how we put customers first, how that shows up market to market. So being a global company and, saying that, like, we have this global footprint, but focusing on the local needs, I think internally we say global footprint, local soul. And so I always tell people, that's what's unique about Rich's, right? Is that you have the network and the resources of a corporation, but you have that family feel of doing what's right and putting our customers first and putting our associates first as we think about what we're going to do. So I think that's the one key thing I always try and hit on for people to understand about Rich's.
Yeah, that's great perspective, Michelle. Kind of building on that local, global feel. I think it'd be really daunting with the challenges, especially when you think globally and what we're trying to tackle. Just as far as social issues and the UN, initiatives and how we try to like, how do you chip away at that over time,
Yeah.
right? And so, a lot of our work is kind of zooming out and then zooming back in. And so, I personally, and this is probably outside of my role of riches, even it's just in my daily life, is like, all right, well, something is more than nothing, right? And so, how do I keep getting in that headspace? And one of the strategies that I've adopted for myself that I think kind of applies to how we're thinking about things globally versus locally, which is like, what is the biggest impact I can make with the least amount of work? And what I mean by that is I have found for myself that it's hard for me to sustain if I can't make some kind of daily or weekly progress. And so that has been helpful for me to like build the confidence of like, all right, we're chipping away at it, right? And you're gonna have some step backs, but I think the nature of Riches and why it's exciting to be part of a global culture is that we're, like I said before, we're constantly learning from what people are doing in different parts of the world, that they have advances in some areas that we're just not mindful of. We get so focused on what might be in front of us. So I think, for the global audience, I would say, first of all, if anybody's listening to this and wants to connect, we're on LinkedIn, and so feel free to do that. Check out what the work that we're doing at Riches, and then point us in the direction of what you're doing that we can learn from, because that's what we're about.
I love that. And, it's funny. I'm finding more and more across, it doesn't matter which industry you're in or what your day job is. When you come together, you can learn so much from one another that the next day you take that with you, and you're better as a human, not just in your day job, but as a human, because you've learned a different viewpoint or a different way to approach something. So I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say too, like, there's some days you're not going to do anything. Like,
Right.
people have a lot on their, right, Michelle, you mentioned 3 boys that you're raising like that. At the end of the day, that might be enough for today. Right.
Sometimes that is my big impact, making them better humans, right?
That's good. So I think there needs to be some grace too we have with ourselves of like, all right, I'm doing good work, and today I'm gonna check out and take care of myself, maybe.
Yeah.
But there is a piece of that as well, of like, what kind of caregiving are we giving to ourselves?
Yep. Well, you can't take care of others if you're not whole yourself. And sometimes that being whole is just going and spending the day with those 3 kids and just leaving the rest of the world behind. So I can appreciate that. Well, what's one thing you'd like our audience to know about yourselves? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I guess tying back around myself and some of the work that maybe we're doing at Riches right now that I think is really exciting in Generations of Good. What Kevin just said really resonated, right? Because there's really big problems to tackle when you think about what's going on from a global perspective in the environmental and social space. And I think that can be really paralyzing sometimes. And I think that's both on the personal side of things, but I think even when you do this job for a living at a large corporation. And so I think one area that that our team is really starting to chip away at, that I think is worth calling out and interesting from a global scale and will resonate, I think, is around that food waste and food insecurity that we've touched on a little bit. And I guess to start to ground everybody on the how large this issue really is I wanted to bring a couple stats with me that I wanted to make sure I shared today and kind of talk some about what we're trying to do against this. And so I'll start with those and say that 1/3 of all food produced in the world every year is wasted, which is a staggering number. If food loss and waste were a country, it would be the size of the 3rd largest source of emissions. So food waste creates so much emissions that it would equate to the size of the 3rd largest country in the world. And with all of that waste that we just talked about, 1 in 7, from the US perspective, 1 in 7 Americans are food insecure. And so those numbers just really hit home for me, and I would hope for others, when you think about the amount of waste there is out there, and then the food insecurity piece of it, and how we can start to do better on decreasing waste, but also improving from a food insecurity perspective. And so our team is focused on both of those issues, right? How can we improve our operations? How can we develop products so that we're decreasing the amount of food waste from the beginning, right? How do you do a better job just from the start? But inevitably there's going to be food waste. Inevitably you're going to have too much product. And so the other side of that coin is, how do you increase the donations of that food waste that you do have? And how do you connect that waste with people in the community that really have that need? And so this past year, our team launched a pilot program at one of our distribution centers out of California. And they worked with a strategic partner, and the strategic partner's nonprofit foundation. And that was what their goal was how do you connect the food waste from this distribution center to local nonprofits and their availability and what they need and what the community needs. And so the team was able to pilot this at one location. And over the course of this past year, they were able to equate to 180,000 meals, divert 215,000 pounds of waste from landfill, which is the equivalent of 90% of a blue whale, if you want to try and think about how much food waste that was able to divert, while feeding that many people through those 180,000 meals. And so hugely successful pilot, right? And so successful, we're able to now take those learnings and launch at another site, a second site. And from there, the hope would be, how do you launch this across the US, right? From a starting point. And I'm focusing on the US here because globally food waste is tricky. There's not the same infrastructure when you think about food donations on a global scale. So something that we want to continue to pilot and scale and figure out how we grow globally. But again, going back to that paralyzing, that can feel paralyzing, the amount of waste and how you tackle this issue. And when you can chip away at it, when you can say, okay, we're going to start at this one location and we're going to see what we do, and you can see real success, that's where the excitement starts to build. And so sometimes when that problem feels really overwhelming and it's hard to get started, you just need a couple advocates. And so I love this example and I love this project because there's a couple people on our team that's what they did. They took their passion and they turned it into real progress to get that business buy-in and to get other associates excited and engaged, so that other associates started doing things that were outside of their day job, right? So like the distribution center that we started, that they were getting help from, that they were all in, but like that was in addition to their day job that they started this pilot program. And, that's a testament to the associates on our team that we're so excited and passionate to push forward with an idea like this and to get other associates engaged to now move to a second facility. So that's a little something I would say it's not necessarily about me. It's more about our team and some of the exciting work we're doing. But to encourage others to, when you're feeling paralyzed, take that moment, think about what you're passionate about and how you can apply that to your either actual work or maybe it is your personal life, and how you can make those small changes that actually end up amounting to something much bigger.
So that, first of all, can you give the number of meals that you
180,000 meals.
180,000 meals. And that all sparked from a couple of associates having an amazing idea. I mean, talk about a ripple effect. I think that also speaks to leadership for yourselves and your organization, that, just allowing associates to be able to have that spirit to say, I think I have an idea, and let them run with it, even if it's in their own time. What a difference that now has been made in our country because of allowing them to do so. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And when you think about, to that point, that's one location. So when you think about how you can start to replicate that across the US and I mean, hopefully one day the globe, right? As you start to interact more in markets and figure out infrastructure and how we can do better, that's where you start to make those big impacts, one day at a time, one year at a time.
Yeah, that's been one of the most satisfying pilot programs that we've been involved in, and sort of see that kind of week after week and month after month, there'd be like somebody new at the table from a different function. Like, what are you doing here, from supply chain or from finance or from, because it's this is what we were talking about before. Like, these problems are really substantial, and there's a reason that it's not happening with greater frequency, because there's a lot of impediments. it's, we kind of show up at the meetings relative to the nonprofit space, right? And the redistribution of food. There's a lot of nonprofits that might be interested in the food, do not have the transportation to get it, do not have the refrigeration, don't have the volunteer network. So on the surface, it feels like, well, why can't we just get this to where it needs to go? And so this is where it all, the culture of riches, right? To be able to think through problems, to be receiving ideas. Emily, you pointed that out there, just the receptivity of like, what is a new idea and how do we chip away at it? And why can we spend months to try to pick away at what is the impediment, and that is really built. And I think that gives us energy to not just build this pilot program, to say, okay, well, what else can we tackle? And like all of this is couched in really an awareness of being imperfect, right? Like we're making mistakes all the time. As we're talking about, there's 5 things at least, right, that we're overlooking or not considering, but we're in it together. And I think that's the most appealing part of it.
And I think just to build on that, because I was thinking about that as you were talking, Kevin, is like, this has been a really successful pilot. But before this pilot, there was a pilot that wasn't so successful on this, right? Yeah. And so I think that's another really awesome thing about Riches is giving that space to fail and fail forward, as opposed to viewing it as just a failure. It's like, no, okay, this didn't work, but what learnings do we have, and how do we take these and apply these to solve the problem in a different way? And that's exactly what this team did, right? That these associates that were part of an initial pilot that maybe didn't go great, they were able to take those learnings and think about it through a new lens and find a new way to tackle that and then have a success. But I think that's a really key takeaway here is like, it's not always a success. Sometimes it's you fall flat on your face, but you say, okay, let's pick ourselves up and let's figure out how next time we can take those learnings and we can do better.
Yep. Yeah. So, and the best learning opportunity you have is, where did you go wrong last time? Like that failure can become the catalyst for the best solution next time. So, well, how can I help? What can my team and I do to help you guys? I mean, this is a really energizing topic, and you're doing so much for our community. What can we do to help?
Well, I think we've already said that pizza will be part of the next sharing of information around a table somewhere. So we can all commit to that. That would be great. And I think, I'd love to. I think what's great is that you will have ideas, right? People will listen to this and have an idea of a nugget that we can learn from. And hopefully there's something here that maybe they can learn from. And I think at the end of the day, that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we are here to help. You guys, I have loved this. I've learned so much, not only about Rich, but about the two of you, your leadership style, the leadership at Riches. It's, I think it speaks, I think, Kevin, you mentioned it, who your leadership is going to be for generations to come. What the framework is, the people, and there's something so energizing about seeing something that started here in Western New York continuing to grow and evolve, and that ripple effect that started here is going across the globe. And it's so amazing to think that the organizations like Riches and people like yourselves are out here leading it and helping our community. So I just want to say thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
Our pleasure. Yeah, great being in conversation with you, Emily. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I also just want to give a shout out to our location sponsor. So here in Batavia, if you come by for pizza, right around the corner is a community art center called Go Art. And they have a podcast room. And through the use of a grant that they've provided to us, we get to use their facility. So it's really great community art support. And we are really grateful for them and to our subscribers who keep us going every week. So Michelle and Kevin, just thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And go Bills.
Go Bills.
All right, you guys, thank you so much. I really, this has just been a great conversation and I appreciate you. Have a good night.
You as well.
You too.